This is a box. And in this box is a soldering kit. And I'm going to show you how I took all of this and made it into this. And if you don't know who I'm imitating right now, you need to watch more science YouTube. What's going on, everybody? It's me again, coming at you from the shop. I have a few caveats for this week's episode. 1. I'm trying out a new camera. Well, an old camera, but new for this. It's a Nikon D3100, and it only records in 1080p. I'm figuring since it's an actual glass lens, and I won't have to crop anything, it should be good enough. Well, once I actually learn how to light for it. 2. The out of focusness goes away, well, gets better, at around the 3 minute and 30 second mark, so apologies for that. I'm not exactly happy with the quality of this one, but it is what it is. 3. No microscope view for this vid. All of these components are through-hole, and this old man is super proud of his still relatively 20/20 vision. I only point this out because it seems that according to analytics, the videos with the microscope do much better, so if you're looking for that, sorry. Anyway, as the saying goes, let's make some shit. As always, I like to lay out all the components to make sure they're all there. Better to find out now than later. I'm going to start this by dry fitting some of the components to get a feel of what to do first, because instructions. In goes the photoresistor. Its purpose? No idea. I figured it was to dim the LEDs when the lights went out, but it doesn't do that. Also the thermistor. This is what tells the temperature. A change in the temperature changes the ohm rating, and the IC chip interprets this value and converts it to a readout on the segmented display. And that's how you get a digital temperature reading. Oh, and if you were wondering why I was using the multimeter 13 seconds ago, it's basically because I'm too lazy to look up the code on the resistors, so I just test them to see what the ohms are. Come on, you know my way is easier. Since you guys can barely see what I'm doing in this video anyway, again, sorry about that, I'm going to go over some of the components and their purposes in layman's terms. As if you haven't realized, I'm the epitome of a layman. I have a basic grasp of these things, but I am in no way an electrical engineer. Let's start with the crystal oscillator. This thing. This component uses a tiny crystal that vibrates at a steady rate when voltage is applied. It creates a consistent timing signal. This signal is crucial for synchronizing operations of the circuit, in this case, the timing of the clock. Here's the thermistor. We went over this before. Temperature changes the resistance value, and well, you know. This is a photoresistor. The resistance of this changes when a certain amount of light is sensed. You've probably seen these in action, like at a street light. When it gets dark, the lights come on. Simple enough. This is the buzzer. Send it power, and it buzzes. Can't be more simple than that. This is a transistor. They have many purposes. In this case, it looks like it's operating as a voltage regulator, but don't hold me to that. And of course, the humble through-hole resistor. Here's the common ceramic type. The color bands you see are a code that you can look up, but of course you could just test them if you don't want to bother wasting 2 minutes of your life. Hey, would you look at that? It's not so blurry anymore. Winning! IC socket is next. These, as you could guess, hold the IC chip in place. They are usually not entirely necessary. Most of the time I just solder the chips directly to the board. There is a crescent-shaped indent on the left or right. Match this up to the mark on the PCB. To install these, I like to hold it in place with a finger and solder the corners. One is usually good enough, but I find it good practice to do opposite sides lengthwise. Then just flip it over, solder away. Hey, I just realized I installed a button battery holder back there somewhere. This battery is specifically for powering and retaining the chip's memory, so it doesn't lose the set time. The actual clock, with its LEDs and display, are powered with a USB power socket. The battery in this case is a 1223 volt, and technically speaking, it should last for a long time. Just think of how many times you've had to change the one on your computer. I'm guessing never. Now back to that USB socket. It's a micro B connector, and man, what a pain in the ass. I don't know why it gave me such a problem. I've soldered much smaller components. It just kept bridging. Thank God for Wiki. I changed to a J-tip, which is meant for S&D soldering, and even used 0.01 thickness solder. This had to be the most difficult component of the build, and caused so many problems later on. More on that to come. Now, on to the switches. What can I say about them? The switches. This type is a normally open momentary switch, meaning the flow of the circuit is broken until you press the button and close the circuit. Release the button and it's open again. Now let's give this board a good cleaning again with my favorite 99% alcohol. If you've watched my previous videos, you know my feelings on this no clean flux. If only I didn't have 4 tubes left. Now onto the 7-segment LED display. These work by sending data to the microcontroller in the display, which in turn tells it which of the segments, or in this case, 34 segments, to light up. Basically install them the same way as the chip holder, hold it with a finger, and catch the corner. And finally, the LEDs. There are 12 red for the hours, and 48 for the remaining seconds. Like you couldn't figure that out. LEDs are polarity sensitive. On this board, there is a positive symbol towards the outside of the board. The longer lead is the positive side, or the anode, and the short is the negative, or the cathode. Just make sure your orientation is the same for all of them, and that's that. Just like the resistors and the caps with long leads, I just bend them to the sides to hold them in place. And with that, I'll leave you guys with some royalty-free music, and shut up for a minute or two. Hey there, I'm back. Miss me? Probably not. As my mother says, keep quiet, dummy. No one cares what you have to say. Well, now thanks to you guys, I could say, well, over 2,000 of people have watched one of my videos, so how about them apples? I jest. But really, thanks to all of you that have watched me ramble on, badly, about this stuff. I'm hoping that as I do more of these, I get more natural at speaking. I never realized how much I smack my lips. And how Brooklyn I sound. You should hear me when I'm angry. I'm straight out of Goodfellas. With the LEDs done, let's install the chips to their sockets, line it up, and push it in. Paying attention to the orientation of the chip in relation to the socket. The battery had some tape glue on it, nothing 99% won't handle. And this is where the USB connector problems begin. I'll spare you the hour it took to fix it, and just say USB connectors are a pain in the ass. I wound up diagnosing it by taking it out and putting direct power to the power terminals with the bench power supply. I think I used 5 volts. Seeing it was working, I left the wires attached, also thinking it would be a good idea to power this with batteries. Bad idea. They lasted 3 days. USB it is. Now let's finally put this case together. Have to say, not a fan of this type of case. Very finicky. And they should have used acrylic screws and nuts. I think it would have looked better than the stainless. And lastly, the horrible idea of using batteries. I had all of these battery holders lying around, so why not? A little solder, a little heat shrink, a little hot glue, and boom. I know it looks like crap, but I had a feeling the batteries wouldn't last long anyway. There's a lot of lights on this thing. It was worth a shot. Remember those clocks with the hands that you would put on the wall that were powered by a single AAA battery and lasted for years? Yeah, this is not that. I'm thinking maybe a lithium-ion battery will fare better, like a 5800 milliamp hour one, but if it's not going to last for months, it's kind of a waste of time. And it's just going to sit on a shelf anyway, so a USB cable is just fine. And with that, we're finished. You know, I really like this one. It might be my favorite so far. It goes together quick. For most of us, it'll probably only take a few hours of sitting back, relaxing. Well, I find this stuff relaxing. Listening to some good tunes, or maybe doing it with your kids. It's a fun few hours of soldering, and it has a lot of lighting modes. Its only downfall is that it only displays in 24-hour time and Celsius. Freedom height for the win, baby. And I'm not trying to preach here, but I find it's best to always clean your bench when you're done. This way, if you put everything back in its home, you know where it is for next time. Now, if only I held this practice in my work van. Man, it looks like a bomb went off in there. Oh, and hey, one last pro tip. Pro. When you're cutting the excess lead from the LEDs and the caps and that stuff, try to do it over a box. I've been finding the clippings in the weirdest places for days. And with that, I leave you fine folks with some not-so-sexy B-roll of all the different modes this thing has. And as always, thanks for watching.